I really loved that Gail and Ellie connected in this episode. And it's
Yeah.
something that occurred to me after watching last week's episode because we had gotten that moment in episode 1 of this season between Joel and Gail. And then there was no resolution between the two of them in episode 2. And so it made sense to me to think that Gail was going to bring this information that she received from Joel to Ellie in some capacity. And so I'm glad we got that. And I thought it was really interesting to see how Ellie continues to guard her emotions in any moment where she is not completely alone. She's in the hospital after those 3 months, having recovered physically at least, and we hope emotionally. And I mean, that's ultimately what Gail's there for, is to determine whether she's safe or like ready to leave and go live her life again. And Ellie is doing a really great job of, like she does in the council meeting later, telling people what they want to hear, telling Gail what she wants to hear as a therapist. Like, these are my therapist answers.
I think, and the character of Gale is such an interesting one, and I love that we got actually quite a bit more of Gale this episode, because we also see her and Tommy later having a conversation, but it's pretty apparent to me in that hospital scene, like early with Ellie, that Gale's not buying it. Like, she's letting Ellie go, but she knows that Ellie is telling her what she just wants to hear.
She was 100% trying to trigger her emotion, too. She's like, actually, I want to talk about what happened at New Year's Eve.
Right.
But it didn't work.
No, it didn't.
You know, it's the kind
like
of thing where,
it.
yeah, you respect the hustle a little bit. But Gail has Ellie pegged as a liar. And even Tommy's like, well, there's people who lie and there's a liar. And Gail's like, no, she's a liar. Like, this one is hard to watch out for. And on the one hand, we have this seemingly deliberate attention being focused on comparing Ellie and Abby. But we also have characters kind of comparing Ellie to Joel and talking about how similar they are. And in fact, one of the best examples of that this episode comes from Tommy, who says that Tommy or Joel would always kind of make up reasons to lash out and get revenge and things. But they were fake reasons, or they weren't kind of the way in which things should be done. And so watching Ellie kind of continue to justify her behavior shows how the two of them are very much alike.
Yeah. Sorry, I had a thought and then I lost it.
No, it's all good.
And I like Gail's theory that Joel was the only person that Ellie was honest with or could be honest with. And I was curious if either of you thought that that would stand. Like, obviously Ellie and Dina have set out on this mission together. Do you think there's ever going to come a point where Ellie can have that kind of trusting, open relationship, friendship, whatever you want to call it, with Dina that she had with Joel, in even a fraction of the amount that she had with Joel? Do we think that that's a possibility?
Pam? I think it's tough. I think it's human to want to try and forge connections. But at the same time, I wouldn't blame Ellie for keeping her cards close to the chest. We know that it's hard for her to put her faith in Joel, and at this point, all she knows is that every time she does trust somebody, they end up dead. So, yeah,
100% success rating of trust someone, that person dies.
Right. She's like, maybe I've marked them for death. But I do think that, like, again, though, it is like, once you've found a connection with somebody like that, it's hard not to yearn for it, even if they're gone. And I just think that is part of what makes her human in a world that is overrun with people that have lost humanity.
I like that a lot, for sure. Yeah, Ellie's choice to divulge or really be herself in front of Joel, obviously we got a lot of times on that on season 1, watching that kind of relationship unfold. But for me, what we're talking about right now goes straight back to the first time that Ellie saw Joel kill a guy. And she was enthralled. It was on the outskirts of Boston. She kind of saw what real power looked like, and she was enthralled, and she wanted to herself be that powerful. And so I think that on some fundamental level exactly what's being talked about in this episode in some ways. Ellie's violence, Ellie's capacity for violence, and Ellie's desire to be extra and to be the one who doles out the violence. Like, Ellie's the one that knocks. Nobody else is going to give her permission to be that I know of. Dina certainly won't, because Dina's too smart for that. And it seems like Tommy also is behaving over emotionally at this moment too. Mm-hmm. He's, nobody's going to give Ellie license. Nobody's going to give Ellie license to be kind of how she either naturally is, based on what like Gail was saying this episode, or what she's going to want to be or psych herself up to be. And so that part's dangerous.
To that point, I think that we see part of that at the end after she watches Joel get killed, because all of a sudden there's a switch that flips and she goes from mourning to I will kill you, and I think that manifests so well, and maybe that is a taste for what's to come, to your point about how she's kind of like she longs for that same power.
Yeah, something that Gail says in this episode, which is an excellent callback to multiple quotes from this show, is that some people just can't be saved. Like season 1, save who you can save. Some people just can't be saved, Gail says this time. And it's almost as if she was listening at the end of last episode as Ashley Johnson sang Through the Valley about your soul being damned. That's the journey that Ellie, they're kind of framing that Ellie is setting out on, is for her to go on this journey that's going to ultimately damn her in one capacity or another.
It's interesting to see, because before Ellie's done anything objectionable, I don't think this episode contained anything objectionable from Ellie. We all see,
not at all.
And not just because we understand her, but because she's just getting started. The question of Ellie's damned or not, this nature versus nurture, and Gail's like, nurture's actually surprisingly little of it. The idea that Ellie is damned, like her nature makes her a liar, makes her evil, makes her bad. How do we feel about this? And it's something the characters openly engage in discussion of early, long before Ellie's done anything that she would regret.
I think that the fact that she gets labeled as a liar is very interesting, because trust is such a huge component for her. And we hear her tell Joe, like the moment that she just decides to truly trust him, like, just don't lie to me. And we see how important that is to her. So it's interesting that somebody that would put so much in trust and not wanting anyone to lie to her would then turn around and be a liar. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Can't be, but it's interesting.
It makes me wonder how well Gail knows Ellie at this point. Like, obviously, Ellie's been in Jackson now.
Joel tell her about?
Yeah, and like Ellie's been in Jackson for 5 years. What have their interactions over the years been like? Has Ellie ever gone to therapy? I mean, Joel was, and that seemed like a far-fetched thing for a long time. Did Ellie ever venture that way? Certainly in this 3 months of recovery since Joel's death, she's been forced into discussions with Gail of some capacity. But it just makes me wonder if Gail's observation of Ellie as a liar and as somebody who is going to twist things to pursue the things that she wants to pursue, the things that she's already set her mind onto, if she pegged that in this 3-month period of recovery, or if it's something that she's realized over these 5 years of Ellie being around in Jackson.
Definitely the look on Gail's face after Ellie gave her speech, even though Gail was like up in the rafters or whatever overlooking, was like, yeah, that was pretty good bullshit. But you could tell, like, I think a few people in the audience were shown to be like second guessing, and Dina was like, did that really happen? Kind of a look on her face of like, yes, she told everyone what they wanted to hear, but this is 5 years of people knowing her. Like, they have to have all been equally shook by that and also not hoodwinked by it. Like, maybe a result of, maybe the 8-3 decision against Ellie had more to do with not the speech she gave, but the fact that people knew that it was some ways disingenuous.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a fair assessment.
But yeah, again, painting Ellie as a liar, you do watch her lie, and especially in the hospital scene in the beginning is a perfect example. It doesn't occur to her to do anything different. Telling the truth is not an option. She wants out of the hospital. Gail is the person that can make that happen. She's gonna lie to her. She's gonna absolutely tell her like Gail's brilliance is that she's not fooled by it and lets her go like with the understanding that she'll be watching her later, non-verbally communicated. But for me, it's like Ellie does, like, there's no switch to flip. She's just going to lie to everybody that isn't Joel at any time for any reason. That seems clear to me. Like, she doesn't see them as equals the way she saw Joel as an equal.
Oh, I like that. Seeing Joel as an equal and everybody else
and
is
so
not.
they're not people in the way that you would feel bad if you lied to somebody you cared about. Like, for Ellie, I think something we're talking about here is maybe there was no other person that could ever be that for her. And now that it's gone, it's like, oh, watch out. He's a liar. So it's just very interesting questions. I have to say the role of Dina in general has been a bit expanded, and I think it's because of, this journey that they're going on together that we begin to see the beginnings of. But I'm really loving the Dina character and kind of the adaptation of it, and especially the way in which it's so clear she brings something essential to Ellie.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, Ellie wants to get out, but she'd have not planned the whole thing at all in a way that was actionable. She would have been back in 2 weeks, run out of food, carried too many guns. Like, the fact that Dina has a map, like, Ellie needs Dina.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
But again, like, she's putting trust in her. So, like, one of you brought up the point about if she could trust anyone else. And it's like, well, if she's going to trust anyone, it's going to be her. Because the fact that she also, like, waits until Dina says it's safe to leave.
Yeah.
I think that speaks volumes instead of just being like, oh, fuck you, I'm going to just go out on my own.
Yeah.
So,
And I think a lot of that is due to the fact that Dina is one of the only people who is willing to go along with Ellie in fulfilling this kind of revenge fantasy.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same thing that happened with Abby and her friends, right? Like, her friends stuck with her in the 5-year interim since her father was killed for the purpose of killing Joel. Like, they are by her side when it goes down because they believed in her and helped her. And now we see that Dina is sort of fulfilling the same role that Abby's friends fulfilled in the killing of Joel. So it's that same parallel that you drew earlier, Pam, that Abby and Ellie are turning out to be kind of two sides of the same coin, and Abby's just enabled sort of an extension or a response to herself in what she's done in Jackson.
What I love about, Abby's friends we were shown didn't really want to be there. I like to think that, at least for the time being, Dina does want to be by Ellie's side, but I think and that comes from a place of care as well. Like, Dina cares for Ellie, and Dina, I think, has a special window and a special insight because of Dina and Joel's relationship that, kind of shows her and she feels what Ellie was going through, more acutely, I think, than the others. Except maybe Seth, but he's not invited to the party.
Right. And to your point, she even tells Ellie, like, I loved him too. And you can tell that Ellie must believe that.
Right.
Because if not, then she would have cast her aside.
So since we are talking about Ellie and Dina more, what about that scene as they're making their way to Seattle where they're in the tent together? Like, what do we have to say about that as they're saying goodnight to each other, but they keep interrupting the goodnight for, like, let's talk about the kiss. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about that.
I'm just glad they didn't bring a pun book. Otherwise the night never would have ended. No, but for me, my question to you two is, if you ask someone to rate a kiss that you've given them and they come back with 6 as a number, are you offended, or is 6 pretty good? It seems above average, right? Or what's average?
I mean, C's get degrees.
Right.
No, but I think in this case, like, the point is that they both kind of know that they're, like, lying a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
very,
Dina's
like, it's such, like, a moment of normalcy in a situation that is just very not normal.
Right.
It's like the I'm just a girl scene, It's like they're just two girls, two teenage girls.
Mm-hmm.
It's jarring every time they mention New Year's, like, as an occasion. It's like, wait,
Right.
there's New Year's Eve in this show? There's holidays in this show? This
Well,
is
the fact that we
folks-
see a baseball game in this show, like,
Oh my god. Yeah, what show is this?
Yeah.
I think we stumbled onto the other Gabriel Luna, Catherine O'Hara show on HBO that airs baseball times. But yeah, it's certainly
Yeah, both of those are just like, there's such moments of normalcy, to your point.
yeah. And that ultimately is, I think, what they're protecting by not sending 16 of their best people to
Yeah.
go after it. And yes, it would seem that they have more than 16 people that could go and do this job, but they are preserving, I think, the right to continue to have baseball games. And it's just not been, I think, drawn in any way that makes sense that the threat posed by Abby and her people is greater than the need for safety and preserving baseball games and cookies
Right.
and everything they have.